The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
He's controversial.
20, 30, 40, 50 years from now,
He's outspoken.
you will tell your kids and your grandkids and your great-great-grandkids
And he tells it like it is.
that you watched a great athlete named the Franchise, and he was the greatest world's heavyweight champion of all time.
He is the franchise Shane Douglas, and you are listening to the Triple Threat Podcast. Prepare to get your ass franchised.
In the tradition of Jack Briscoe, of Dory Funk Jr., of Terry Funk, the man who'll never die. From the Harley Races to the Barry Windham to the Ric Flairs. And they can all kiss my ass. Because the franchise, Shane Douglas, is the man who ignites the new flame of the sport of professional wrestling.
Let's get it going right here, right now. This is the Triple Threat Podcast, and you're listening to episode number 100 of the Triple Threat Podcast here on Vince Russo's The Brand. Look at this. The franchise Shane Douglas feeling very froggy tonight as we roll into this huge episode 100. If you didn't know by now, my name is Chad, and as always, I'm joined by my tag team partner from the two-man power trip, the one and only JP, John Paz. John, say a quick hello.
To quote Shane's favorite wrestler, hey, yo.
Who's that?
Oh, just an old buddy of yours.
Terry Funk used to say, hey, yo.
And then there he is, folks, for 100 episodes on this show, telling it like it is in the way the franchise can every single week. The franchise, Shane Douglas, and beautiful, but I'm probably sure hot as balls, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Franchise, welcome back here for episode 100.
Man, I can't believe it, 100 already. But no, yeah, it was warm today, but it's not the kind of heat that we're going to be getting. It's supposed to be getting pretty nasty here, but. I said I just had to shut the 2-ton vault door again. I got to get the automatic button on that damn thing because, to come down here in the subterranean franchise levels here and shut that door all myself, it's getting to be, I'm no spring chicken. I mean, 39 is not a spring chicken anymore.
Yeah, but hey, you look great. The coif still holding up pretty good after a week, still looking very good as only the franchise can. But, Shane, we're looking at episode 100 here. Obviously, we've done a lot. We've said a lot. We've turned a lot of heads. We've pissed off a lot of people. But,
no, we can't do that.
But I think it's funny that the last two episodes, which were really one episode just broken up into two parts, we talked about your time in the WWF, and I think people think you might have softened a little bit when it comes to a certain Irishman, as you were reflecting very so eloquently on your time back in the New York territory. But, I don't know if this is the right time to, maybe see how things are going to work out. But I don't know, Shane, you went a little soft on us when it came to Vince last week.
Well, look, I mean, I think you didn't pay attention because I said, and I've said this from the time immemorial, in 1990, when I went to WWF, my tenure there was very uneventful as far as any bullshit. I made good money, was treated well by Vince, but it wasn't until 95 when he became the flaming asshole that he became. The I don't run a fucking welfare business guy. So no, I haven't softened. There isn't a fan. I'd love to see on my Twitter account tomorrow any fan that believes that I've softened on one certain Vincent K. McMahon.
I don't know, Shane. It was very complimentary, but this is so weird. This episode, not that it's been cursed going off the top, but we've had these interruptions feel like they're coming in, rumblings, if you will. I see these area codes popping up, and we've had ourselves buzzed once or twice while recording this show. So I don't know if we have any kind of static electricity this week, any kind of special drop-ins that might be happening tonight.
Any 203s coming in?
Yeah, the 1203 that you don't want to hear from, pal. Yeah, that's right. It's me. You want to talk about heat in Pittsburgh, pal? I'll come down there and bring the heat right to your front doorstep. I've got my thong on, Shane. I've got my chain around my neck and the shirt off, baby. I'll kick that door right in. We're gonna have a good old time, Shane. It's me. It's Vince, pal. I'm back, buddy. I've been waiting to talk to you for a while. We got a big show coming up on Monday. We're bringing back all the stars. You know what I mean? And they said, get me Dean. I said, who, Ambrose? I said, no, he's gone already. And I said, get me Dean, goddammit. I said, Simon Dean? He said, no, not that guy. I said, give me Dean, damn it. I said, Dean Malenko. I said, no, he's too short. He can't go anymore. I need somebody who can get out there and give me a good 5-minute get-over match and throw a belt in the goddamn garbage can. The man I need is Dean Douglas, goddammit. We're going back to the 90s, Dean. I need you on Monday, pal. Yeah.
Fucking tremendous. That's better Vince than Vince.
Yeah, it is me, pal. We're taking all the power back. God damn it! Well, I just bring you back. All we're gonna do, me, you, and Bruce, we're just gonna rib Easy E, and we're gonna get over on Hamin. All those goddamn years they put us under, we're gonna get over on them now. It's our time, baby. Yeah, franchise.
It sounds great. There's that little linchpin of that money you owe me from 1995.
Will you take some Iowa's own Seth Rollins shirts? I got a whole goddamn warehouse. How about the man's man? You like that? The man's man. Yeah.
You know, Shane, after all these years, I mean, you know, the countless hours that Vince has, you know, been plotting behind the scenes, I think it's time we finally find out. You know, Vince, has Shane been on your mind at all in these past 20-something years? You know, he's the only guy that won't come back for a buck and tape a documentary. He won't sit in that chair and listen to people ask him questions. Has this been on your mind at all, Vince, in the last couple of years?
All the time. It's like, who's left on the big wall of the Kiss My Ass Club? And there's his face smiling back at me. He's not going to join. He's not. Well, we know everybody's got a price for the $1 million. I mean, for me, baby, for the Saudis, everybody's got a price. And I'll book you versus the Stinger in the main event, baby. You can pull 25 minutes, and we'll all try and get out alive. It'll be great. Yeah. Some good shit, pal. I'm telling you. And then Shane, I'm telling you what I'm going to do, Shane. This is the secret plan. Nobody knows about. Ultra Kayfabe Stooge report right here. Yeah, right out of the back office, Shane. I'm going to send you over. I'm going to send you over to my new Fed, AEW, with Deuce, and you and Deuce, and you're going to take that new goddamn belt. That new goddamn belt that Bret Hart put out there. I'm going to send that Jamaican out. I'm going to have him tackled again, and you're going to take that goddamn belt and you're going to throw it in the trash again for me, Shane, just like you did when the first time, kid. We need you out there, Shane.
I love it. I feel like
Shane, that's the pitch. Are you going back?
Yeah, I'm packing my bags right now as we speak.
Yeah, pal. I like that. I'll be up in the gym. I'll have the neon pumping. You know.
Well, listen, hey, it's episode 100, Shane. So this called for a big guest, and since we have a little bit to talk about here, I'm going to welcome him in officially. And it is from the Russo brand, also from the Hacker Hamin brand, the one and only, the great Bin Hamin. Shane Bin, I don't know if you met before, but now you have here in the special world of episode 100.
Oh, yeah, great stuff, brother. Back at you. Great stuff. I love it.
For sure, man. We, you might remember me more in my other character, man, which has been Hamin. I do the Sheik gimmick. We worked Dynasty, a couple other shows. I think Jake was on that show. You were a surprise that night. Maybe about 18 months ago, I got, and that was always an honor. But man, for episode 100, congratulations to all you guys, your production staff, you franchise, and to be the guest on here, I'm supremely honored, man. So thanks for having me on, guys.
Appreciate having you, brother. It's I guess people think, I hope they don't think anyway when I say this, to be at episode 100, because I was not, as Chad and JP will tell you, I had to be not dragged into it, but I just didn't think there was that much to talk about. And, each week I see the sheet come out, and well, yeah, I forgot about all that shit, so that we're here at 100 and, having done 2 or 3 episodes after launching on the Vince Russo's The Brand on the Realm, Vince and I have been friends for a long time, and I'm proud to see what he's gotten going, and that he's still creating waves out there because that's what our business needs, right? I mean, it needs a kick in the ass. It needs a kick in the balls. And, you know, the only way it's going to happen is for people to see that kind of acerbic, you know, no pun intended, they steal a phrase from Taz, fuck the world attitude. And, you know, let's be the ones to bring it, right?
Absolutely, man. And I think that's kind of where I am. You know, you can see here, I got the Hustler Rip Rogers shirt on, baby, from
Nice.
ProWrestlingTees.com/hustler. That I'm a Rip Rogers guy through and through. And his
yeah.
mouth gets him in trouble sometimes, just like a franchise, yours does, and mine does too. But when you're speaking the truth to power and they don't want to hear it because they're fucking up and they're over, well, guess what? That we're going to be right. So I'll just sit back on the hill. And when you come to me for the right advice, I'll be waiting for you. You don't want to hear it now, I'll pat you on the head. Have a good day and surround yourself with more yes men and more writers who've never been in the business, who've never paid a due. And you're just going to keep on effing up. And they're a bunch of bruise touchers. They keep touching the bruise and saying, why does this hurt? Why does this hurt every time? You know? So I'm sure Chad can get into it. Russo and Stevie Richards and I had a pretty interesting interaction with Fox, man. I see it's on the run sheet. I don't know if you want to set that up or where you guys want to get into it.
Yeah, you know, Shane, I didn't get a chance to really fill you in on this one, but a couple weeks ago, Ben, Stevie, and Vince Russo had this conversation with a Fox executive where they kind of were, and Ben, I'll let you kind of handle the nuts and bolts of it, but basically they had the opportunity to get with somebody from Fox and kind of, you know, maybe direct them into some of the problems that are going to arise when this new television show hits in the fall season on the Fox on the Fox television network. But Ben, kind of tell Shane about how kind of, you know, came together and how it developed and really, you know, what came out of it, because I mean, what you guys talked about is pretty much coming true.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not like, you know, we didn't have to call the psychic hotline. We've seen the trend, and we know when you're doing bad structure and bad creative and uninspired things that are just like all Hollywood, a reboot of what was done before, you're only going to get minimum value of it. Yeah. So, you know, being with the internet and doing what I do in marketing, I just did a quick troll of some of the business journals that would talk about the WWE Fox deal and would outline the Fox execs of what their names were. Did a quick search on Twitter, found two of them. One of them, who I know is probably the one handling it, I checked who he's following: Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, AEW. So like right away, you know who you're dealing with, right? You know who you're dealing with. So
absolutely.
I and it's worth it. It's fine with me because now I know how to handle it. So I drop him a direct message and drop Russo's name saying we'd like to talk to you about, you know, some services we can offer. And 5 minutes later, I get the email address and we set it up for a week later down the road. And, you know, get our ducks in a row, just like we do on Raw and SmackDown review with Stevie and Vince and I. And they kind of make Vince, we want Stevie and I, you know, lay out, and Vince pitches it for like 12 minutes very eloquently. Smart. How, you know, Ferrara did it for USA Network, how Bischoff did it with TNA, and this is how it works. But they made him kind of step up to the plate and say, we want to be consultants and we have all this ability to offer. And then they had us, because we asked that, because they couldn't ask us to ask, you know, they had us write a proposal. So I went through all the legal stuff and wrote that up. And now it sits on their desk, burning a hole through their desk with no price on it. And every week as it goes on, the price goes up as ratings go down. So, you know, an inverse relationship. But it was just the simple legwork. Obviously, I'm going to get over on Russo's name. I feel proud of my 13-year indie career, but it's not going to pull as much weight as that is. Sure. And obviously, Stevie has 30 years to add of all the knowledge working every major company during the Monday Night Wars, which we're about to re-enter here. So that's the long and short of it. But people try and step up. Like, we were begging for a job. Well, let me lay it out to you this way. And Russo lays it out. I don't know if you heard this. Imagine now at the upper level, you've got Vince and Bruce on a team. You've got Team Paul Heyman. You've got Team Johnny Ace flipping in between with Mark Carrano going back in between there. Team Jeff Jarrett. Who else is in that upper echelon?
Shane.
Team Shane and Steph. Team Triple H.
with NXT. Now imagine trying to get your ideas
Yeah.
through that to get to Vince, or would you rather have all that shit trickle up through you to Vince to Fox and you get to rubber stamp it and fix it? Not to say, no, this sucks, but like, all right, here's what you want. Let's recraft it the right way.
Yeah.
That for what we really want to do to save wrestling, put a kick in the ass and be the guys who, because we make our money off this. If wrestling does good, more interest we do.
Sure.
So that you know, which way is a creative mind is easier to navigate, far simpler in my opinion to talk to Fox.
Yeah, well, it sounds brilliant. You hit on something there that you know, so few people on the outside, so few fans understand. So we have all these divisions in the WWE, right? I know all of those guys, and this is not talking shit on any of them. It's just stating a fact. They're all staking out, how can I step on the other one's heads to get closer to Vince?
Yes.
And you know,
And
right
Team
now, that must be the ants battling out for that one crumb on the floor.
Yeah.
And boy, I'd love to be a fly on the wall to watch that, because you're going to see all the politics, all the backstabbing, everything in full display. And maybe that's what Vince is trying to get. I don't know, but you know, it seems to me that if I'm Fox and I've got a considerable sum of money invested in this thing, you know, the few things that I've seen, because honestly, as the guys will tell you, I don't dig deep into the weeds on the business. But, you know, I stay at the low hanging fruit and, you know, sort of not pay much attention. But, you know, if they've got 2-point-something billion invested in this, and they've announced, I did see where they announced that they were going to launch with 3.5 million viewers and maintain 3 million viewers per week. Well, you know, I wish them all the luck in the world. But SmackDown on a Friday night in 2019, averaging 3 million viewers, brother. If they can pull that off, I want to see them on. I want to see where they park their magic carpet and watch their walk on water trick, because it ain't going to happen. Certainly not with this product. It could if done properly, but not with this product.
Well, you know, you touched on something, Shane and Ben. I was very curious about this. You have Vince McMahon, and you have all those little teams. You got Shane's little group, Stephanie and Triple H, and then obviously he brings in Hamin and Bischoff as executive directors. Don't you think, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, don't you think he kind of did it on purpose to shake things up and almost poke at Triple H and Shane and Stephanie and say, you know, you guys are doing a real shit job. The show sucks. Like, nobody's giving me anything good. I'm going to bring back, you know, two of your favorites and, you know, maybe shake it up and really, really push their buttons.
My take on it is that's what it looks like from the outside, right? From a simple perspective. But unless you guys have been to that level of where the Sharks play and how to even get there, I've heard stories of guys who are top guys who want to get a meeting with Vince to talk creative. It takes them 3 weeks to get a telephone call to get your creative shut down. Like, there's not a, like, hey, let me stay around till 2 a.m, knock on the door. Bro, Vince, can I talk to you for 5 minutes? I got this idea. I think it'll get over. Those layers don't exist. Like that doesn't exist anymore unless you're really over to be able to get in. And I'm talking guys who are in your semi-main event. Like it takes that. And then just to get it shot down. So whether it's like, oh, you're not giving me shit, and it's Shane and it's Steph, and I'm going to shake it up. And they brought in Heyman and Bischoff 2 weeks after we tried to end around with Fox, and that's supposedly where it is that Bruce is the one that shot that down, and Vince listened to him. And then we get short answers, and I'll stooge, and I'm going to get hate from Russo, but like, where even later after all this, Russo will just hit up Vince and be like, hey, I'm here if you need somebody, just an extra set of eyes to look on creatively, and you just get a thanks. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? So you know what that like, all right, we're just going to sit back here on the hill and watch Rome burn, because what TV show in the history has been able to increase their viewership 33% in 1 quarter before launch? Fox pulls shows off the air when they hit 3.5, not when they launch and will want them to go farther. And you're sacrificing your creative for Saudi business, who's got bigger money invested, where they are really the marionette puppet string holders here, because what they want, WWE will sacrifice creative for, but sacrificed creative drives down ratings on Fox. So again, we have this strange Venn diagram of Vince giving up the power for bigger money, and now that's a lot of knives to juggle. Without man.
You ain't kidding. I mean, look, when you've got all those kind of politics going on, and the big question that I have, and I certainly don't, but I'm sure that this is not a 5-year guaranteed contract from Fox. I'm sure there's some base limit that says, okay, hey, you drop below this point, we're out. If they're saying 3.5 to 3 million viewers, what happens if they launch with 2.3 and drop to 1 or 800,000? I mean, Raw a few weeks ago did what, 1.5?
Yeah. I think they're doing about $1.8 million to 2.2. So like I said, that you got to increase by a third from there just to be at the standard where they want to launch. And when we talked to them, Shane, we laid it out, and they baby faced us. They were like, yeah, we know about all those problems. We're trying to keep a positive attitude, and we're trying to find some solutions.
I love the solution they found the other day whenever Bailey was on the talk show. And she sort of meandered into the, hey, we don't have health insurance routine. But good. It's time. What was the guy's name? John Oliver, I think, that had the comments
John
some
Oliver.
time ago. And the other day, I think I forwarded to you guys, the 30 biggest scandals and controversies in wrestling. And to be fair to Vince, since you sort of babyface him so much, there were a handful of those that had nothing to do with Vince, but the vast majority did. And you've got Oliver now, who's not my taste, but a big late night guy. You've got Bailey now on one of the Fox properties. I'm sure slipping and letting go. I'd love to be the guy writing the memos, going out to everybody else doing shows from here on in. Right?
Those are done, bro. Those are done. Cut. And did you see how she even put it over of like tried to toe the line after? Well, we don't need drivers now. Like riding on the road is part of the fun of being a WWE superstar, as opposed to let me have a driver. So and Ryback's put this over, like how unsafe it is when you leave an arena and you got to go 300 miles. It's 2 a.m. You're getting that. You're wide awake. Your eyes are open, but you're shaking, man, and you're trailing off of lights. and that it is shocking that there hasn't been a death specifically from that.
God.
And there is it worth you putting the money in, doing the travel the way that it's not carny as hell and kayfabe from the people? So here we have the Dash and Dawson trying to cut the rich guys promo while they're staying at La Quinta Inn, doing it in the lobby. And then what are they rolling up like Flair and jets and limousine? No, they're gonna roll up in the medium rental car, looking for change to fill it up, dude. You can't have it both ways if you want it to be like that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It's been the thing that's always driven me crazy because, and I've always been outspoken about it. This isn't me saying, hey, Vince sold $1 million of Billy Graham pictures last year, so Billy Graham should get 999,000. But shouldn't Billy Graham get 1,000? Shouldn't he get something from that?
Sure.
And when you look at this and you see that you've got a multi-billion-dollar corporation, multinational, one of the top 4 brand names on the planet, and the guy sitting at the top has 7-8 mansions around and billions in the bank and taking more from the Saudis. Meanwhile, his superstars, like you said, are jumping in the car and driving 200 or 300 miles the night before. It's like, in all respects for the talent, the industry, his industry, has stayed in the 60s, the 70s, even in the 80s. Meanwhile, on the telecommunications level, the social media level, he's exploded through the roof. And he's treating everybody like we should be happy that we're still getting the 70s scraps. It's astounding to me. I don't know how the guy sleeps at night.
Yeah, it's just a liability too, man. And if they're so into the philanthropy and highlighting how great they are with charity, well, you should take care of your own people to that extent and make them look like stars. I mean, I've been told that back in the day, he made sure Ted DiBiase always had 2-3 grand in his pocket, up to 10 grand, to always be able to flash that cash around. Well, if you're that much into detail, let's take priority and seriousness of the workers' health rights. And there's also independent worker David Starr. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He just kind of wrote a blog and did a podcast where he's trying to lay the foundation of to put a union together and get things going. And this Bailey stooge off on the heels of the Oliver thing, man. Oh, it was just so good. It was so cringy. I love that kind of stuff. Man.
Well,
Wait, but Dean Douglas didn't get a car, Shane? Dean Douglas didn't get his own driver?
He had a school bus.
School bus, exactly.
I think they just repainted the old Partridge Family bus and gave it to me. The thing that I found hilarious about the Bailey segment was the reaction of the Fox personality.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
Yep, big time.
You'd have thought that there was an alien, a reptilian sitting there talking to her, because she didn't understand the language she was speaking. She was completely aloof on the whole thing.
How at this point, 1,000 episodes, the longest running episodic program in TV history, are they not all SAG workers? Well, how are they not Screen Actors Guild?
Amen.
It's that simple. And Stevie and I were talking about this on our Friday locker room, and Stevie said he had heard because they don't run credits at the end of the show or something static that way, which again seems super carny to me. Like, if that's what it takes, guess what? The fans are going to go, Alexa Bliss, played by Lexi Kaufman. No shit, she stooges off on Twitter anyway. Yeah. So show that and give them health care. And David Starr, what he's talking, even the indies, which I don't know if it's viable, because this is where it gets too much, because indie promoters are already on a low budget and shady, and they need to promote more to sell more tickets. But now if you're talking about mandatory car service, because if WWE guys have it, that means everybody has to have it. Yeah. The doctors that they're already overcharging in New York, where you have to have a doctor and an ambulance. Well, what, the ambulance is going to take you to the doctor at the hospital? The doctor's standing right there. So they're getting two twice. Catering, they want to be fed a meal abroad, making sure that all travel housing is taken care of in advance. So if those are union rules, which are basic rights for an independent traveling entertainer, we've just, like Shane said, been doing this 70s, we'll take a licking and keep on ticking, because that's our paying the dues, brother, as opposed to saying this is what we deserve for putting our bodies on the line. It's interesting.
And Ben, you've been around long enough to know that I've never heard a wrestler complain over those things. I've never heard a wrestler say, hey, holy shit, we got to drive 300 miles tonight, or, we don't have a driver, or whatever else. Because every man and woman in the industry loves the industry, and Vince takes advantage of that. The industry takes advantage of it. And
pal, that's why I got a death clause in the contract. You die, I'm absolved, buddy. Sorry, go ahead, Shane.
How do you I remember Bam Bam doing the Trident. If you remember, he did the Trident chewing gum commercial. It was hilarious. Big Bam Bam's riding a little 10-speed bike down the. Well, he got off of that. He told me, I forget the numbers. I'm probably going to get it wrong, but it was something like $76 a month through SAG. Because of that commercial, he got his SAG credentials. And for 76, I think was the number, and I may be wrong on that, but it was some crazy low number that he was able to get health benefits for him and his entire family through SAG.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. Sorry to cut you off, but that's what I was going to ask, because there's enough commercials that get done, whether it's for a video game. I mean, even ECW, you guys did video games, you did action figure commercials, but that's where I would think that the SAG stuff kind of sneaks in, because you have to have some sort of paperwork to step in front of the camera with those professional crews. But I always found it interesting when somebody talks about, hey, I had to go do a commercial. I think it was actually even Shawn Michaels that said the Rockers were about to leave the WWF over a commercial that they didn't get enough, that everybody else got in a commercial. Yeah. How does Vince get responsible for paying the talent when they're doing commercials if that's supposed to be somewhat in that SAG-AFTRA category? I never got that. If you do a commercial, I thought that was your way in.
Well, it gets into, now you start to get into the weeds. I know we did Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies. We had the producers had dealt a bit with, was it going to be a SAG production or not? When you make it a SAG production, all those things that Ben was talking about earlier, the catering and all, it just ramps up the budget exponentially very quickly. But in doing it, like I always said, hell, we were on television. Let's face it, Ric Flair was on television in the 70s and 80s more than Walter Cronkite, who was on nightly news every single night. You know, how was it that somebody that is a household name that has been on television for 35, 40 years doesn't chunking it off the top? Because then if Vince does that, he's going to have to take care of everybody. Right now, he can take care of a handful, and this has always been the Vince McMahon paradigm. I'll take care of JP, and I'll take care of Ben, and I'll take care of Chad. But that Shane Douglas guy, fuck him. I'm not going to take care of him and everybody below him. And so he takes care of you top three guys and spends all the television time on you three guys. And then the rest of us are out there trying to scratch and claw our way up, hoping to get into one of those spots. So your John Cena's, your Seth Rollins, and I'm just pulling names off because I haven't watched this show for so long. But, you take the top handful of guys, you lavish a few bucks on them. Better to lavish a couple million on those two or three guys than to have to pay, look, how many people they have there in the contract? 100, 150 right now. That's how many, 1,600 in the NFL, 1,400 in the NHL. Look at the average salary in those two entities and realize that a Bailey would be making $1 million or $2 or $3 or $4 a year. So all he does is take care of those top guys and spend all the television time, or the majority of the good television time, the key quarter hours on those guys. And now I keep the rest of all the schmoes down there just trying to scratch and claw their way up the ladder. It's so dichotomous to what it should be. And in 2019, hard to believe as we're talking about a 15-hour minimum wage, when you look in that industry and you realize that even the ones that on paper look like they're making a decent living, the $250,000, 150 to 250,000, take out 40 to 50% of that right off the top for the taxes. Then add in the nightly expenses. What does a hotel room cost in Chicago or Los Angeles or New York City on a nightly basis? Now do that 5, 6, 7 nights a week, and you need a rental car, and you got to feed yourself, and you have to pay to go to a gym, and your baggage fees on the flights, and all the rest of the stuff. It adds up very quickly. So I would think right now a $250,000 contract is probably, if that person does everything to save every cent they could, a la like a Mick Foley, if they can save 30, 40, maybe 50 grand out of 250, they're way ahead of the curve, and you'd be hard pressed to do that. But it gets back, and I don't want to monopolize all the time, but it gets back to what we had talked about before with the IRS 21 rules for independent contractors. When you go and look at those 21, and I challenge anybody listening to this podcast to go just Google IRS 21 rules independent contractors. Go through those and, in the loosest way, try to apply it to your biggest wrestling fan or your biggest wrestling hero and see if they even loosely apply. And they don't. And so it tells me that either Vince has been paying somebody off in the government to overlook this, or he's got a hell of a wrestling fan sitting in the right place in the government that's squashing this, because the Internal Revenue Service has been screwed out of tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, as have the talent over the last 30, 35 years. Those rules in no way apply to what we do in professional wrestling. Not in WWE, not in any company.
Now, how do you think Bailey handled that, Shane? Do you think she did a good job?
Well, I loved it. But, to me, it shows what happens when you put somebody autonomously on a show where you have no idea what kind of questions are going up. I'd love to see the memos that right now are going back and forth between Fox and WWE about what types of questions to ask, et cetera, because I'll guarantee there's been more than one. And she did nothing wrong. She was being sincere and trying to be honest. And she answered that question honestly. She's probably going to catch hell if she hasn't already for it. But when you see a giant like a Fox Sports step right into that and have no idea what they're stepping into after they've signed a $2 billion contract, and now finding out, well, geez, that's odd. Some executive over there's going, I wonder what else we don't know. And unfortunately, they're going to find out a lot more is behind that curtain than what they expected.
Yeah, and I mean, it seemed like the host had no idea what the hell WWE even was. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, if she's going into it thinking that, oh, they've got a CBA, they're getting drivers driven. She didn't know what it was. It's not the UFC. And I don't know if UFC guys get that stuff. But she, I think, had a completely misinterpretation as to what the WWE even is as a business.
Well, that is the typical outsider's view, right? My God, I watch Bailey. I watch you every week on Raw and SmackDown, and I've seen you on WrestleMania, and I've, see you on every pay-per-view. You must be a multi-millionaire. Life must really be good. And when those fans begin to realize, and this is what I always tell the fans, when you buy that $30, $35 t-shirt on WWE.com, when you buy that franchise DVD or that ECW DVD, and I've asked tens of thousands of fans, so I know this is the answer. They believe that some portion of that is going to the talent. So if I buy a Bailey t-shirt, I believe 10, 12, 15, 20 bucks is going to Bailey, when in fact she might be lucky to be making 10 or 15 cents on that t-shirt. These are the things that I think that John Oliver, when he started with his show, and now we've seen Bailey on the Fox program, these are the things that the fans that support that product have to understand. You're enriching the guy at the top, and the rest of the people down the line are getting smaller and smaller crumbs as it goes down. In my book, it's unforgivable. But I've been around quite a while and seen a lot, and I just cannot for the life of me fathom why I would not want to protect my commodity, because my show is, you can call it whatever you want, my show is my talent, right? My sports entertainers, my wrestlers, whatever you want to term them. The last thing I want is to invest 52, 104 or more weeks in getting wrestler A, B, or C over and have that wrestler die in a car accident, traveling those 300 miles that Ben talked about earlier. Or worse yet, like we've seen how many times, die in a hotel room, self-medicating because of the injuries that they're going through or the depression they're going through from missing their kids' first words, first steps, first day of school. These are the things that the average fan really, it's time, I believe, in my big mouth way, it's time that we have that discussion with our fan base and with the media in general, like Fox Sports, and let them know exactly what is professional wrestling, what is sports entertainment, and what isn't it. Because, like you said, the woman that was running the interview with Bailey, she sure as hell seemed like she was on another planet when she was hearing these answers back from Bailey, and I think that says it all.
Yeah, Ben, and when you dropped off, we just were saying that, not only was it, I think Bailey kind of handled the questioning in a pretty decent way. She's very well versed in that WWE PR world, but I thought that the people at Fox didn't smarten up the interviewer to the fact that what the WWE even is a business. I mean, I don't know what she thought WWE brought to the table in terms of just a business commodity. So that's what Shane was kind of addressing there at the end. But I'll throw this out to all three of you guys. John Oliver and the impact he had in that segment, it was the week before WrestleMania. So it had everybody talking. And WrestleMania was in the biggest market in the world. So everybody had the eyeballs on WrestleMania. But did John Oliver drop the ball by not following up? Kind of seems like he just went for the, the quick social media share.
Yeah. If I could jump in there for a second. Absolutely. And I think when you look at this paradigm, right, we're going to talk about the 3 or 4 topics of the day, and tomorrow those topics are old hat. We'll go to the 3 or 4 topics for tomorrow. But what surprised me, and it shows you again the strength of professional wrestling, is that even here we are 2-3 months later, and people are still regurgitating John Oliver's comments and attaching them to things like the Bailey interview. Clearly that there was penetration there to the fan base and to the general audience at large, people that aren't wrestling fans. But like I said earlier, I think it's time that we have that discussion, what is and what is not fair for the wrestlers, and what should or shouldn't be the pay scale, the bennies on the side, because in every other industry, I cannot imagine Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger jumping in a car after their game to drive 200 or 300 miles to the next game. Or somebody from the UFC, having to go stay at the La Quinta, like Ben was talking about earlier, after their big battle at UFC 900. But this is what still goes on, has always gone on in professional wrestling, and continues to go on because, again, I believe that the fans think that when they buy a Shane Douglas T-shirt, that the vast portion of that money is coming to me, or at least a good chunk of it, not tenths of pennies per T-shirt.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, with guys like Dolph Ziggler, I think they've got it figured out. He's got his own pro wrestling tease store. He's fighting. He's in the main event, and he gets to go do his comedy thing.
Yeah.
He's been around long enough, and now he's got it set up. Is that the new model where you have to be the independent hustler? Because they are only making $1 on a WWE shop shirt. Pro wrestling tees, you're making 6 to 8, depending on how much color and all that's on that based off your celebrity. And him having a PWT store while he's under WWE makes him a cool outlaw anyway. So he's super smart in everything he's doing that way. The John Oliver thing, I can put this out there because, we have the Conspiracy Horsemen as well, Shane, with Big Sal, Stevie, and Greek God Poppin' on and I. Was that whole John Oliver thing paid opposition, story to put out there? Is there's no such thing as bad press while they're in New York, to throw them under the bus so the haters can come out and get that side of what they want to get over. But then when it really matters, when things like the Ashley Massaro tragedy happen, Stevie and I talked about this, and I got to put it over of this is where they could do more. If you want to talk about philanthropy and this kind of stuff, Stevie reached out, because I kind of smartened him up, to Canyon Seaman, who's a great office guy there, played pro volleyball and does a lot with NXT and everything. Mm-hmm. So I know I'm very close with Serena Deeb, who's a women's trainer there, and I know they paid through scholarship for her 200-hour yoga training. And Stevie's always so ambitious. He reached out to see if there's any scholarship for legends and whatnot. And I guess there is 3 scholarships given a year for continuing education. Now imagine if that was part of their philanthropy to answer that question of what am I going to do next in my life? And we get to see guys like, I know Ken Doan from the Spirit Squad, when he got back over, when the squad had like 6 to 8 week run a year ago, he left a job that was $55K at a nonprofit to go back on the road to work indie wrestling based off of that and give it up again. Like, you're giving up the dream again when all these people are super qualified to have careers outside of wrestling, or you're a 30-year guy and now you want to have a new career. Who's to say Ashley Massaro wouldn't have been a great nurse, and that would have given her something to go further on? Like, they could be doing themselves not just great philanthropy and showcasing it. That'd be great network stuff. Vito gets his law degree and you show him graduating or whatever, and that they're actually doing something to protect themselves from the future from an Ashley Massaro event, a Chris Benoit event, because we looked past and we bred these people to do great things. Stevie would be awesome on the XFL as a sideline commentator guy down there. So I think there's opportunity. They've got this much of it, but let's get max value and protect ourselves, protect our future investment, use this Saudi money for good, because all that is buy off blood money for a PR campaign for buying weapons.
Yeah, but man, I'm telling you, you're not gonna have a long talk sometime, because you're hitting the nail right on the head, brother. I've got a prodigious amount of education. It was accepted at medical school, 2 master's equivalencies, and that didn't scratch the surface of what I learned in my industry, business-wise, television production-wise, marketing-wise. I mean, I've got a world of experience. But when you look at the industry, what is a booker? In the real world, what is a booker? What is an agent? I believe that those words, and I'm not placing this on Vince, because these long preceded Vince's tenure. But if you call me a general manager or a head coach, that translates to the real world. Yeah. Booker, agent does not. No. So how do you go out and market yourself to a General Electric, an IBM, a Google, or an Alphabet, or a Facebook, saying, hey, I've been a booker and I've been an agent, and and so you paint these people in to the corner and then have nothing for them at the end. when they have all this experience. And the thing I've always said, and I will say this to my dying breath, the wrestlers that I've seen that were good and great at what we do, they are fucking eloquent. When you see a Harley Race go out and perform his stuff, it's like watching a magic trick. It really is. And Flair, Steamboat, Bruno Sammartino, all these guys, how does one of those guys with all that amazing in front of the camera and decades of it, how do they translate that out once their career's done and they move forward to the next level? I agree with you. Boy, what a emperor Vince would look like if he was taking all those guys and pushing them out there. And how much more would he gain, his company gain, if he were to bring those guys and all that prodigious experience into his company, which is what's missing. So you and I need to have a beer sometime and sit and really shoot the shit on this, because you're hitting the nail right on the head, my friend.
Well, this is what we're doing at Hamin Media Group. And, I'm before I got in the business and was in comedy, I was such a diehard ECW Northeastern guy, man. So, I mean, I know the whole legacy of everybody. So to get to work with you guys now where I'm at in my career is a blessing. And like I said, to be here, but it's an open invitation for you to join us on the Conspiracy Horsemen, or as we also have the Horror Junkyard with Big Sal doing that now. And, definitely.
What's Sally up to, man?
Man, we've got Breaking Sal, where that's him and Stevie, where we just give a topic until Sal loses it and he goes off on a huge shoot. People seem to love that. The Horror Junkyard is pretty much B, C, D list horror movies that they break down. I think they're doing Deathgasm tonight at twitch.tv/the Horror Junkyard. And then Conspiracy Horseman is kind of our flagship show, where we have pretty high level guests on, but we talk like how we did in the locker room, and we're ostracized for 8 to 10 years. Now it's pop culture to talk about what we were talking about to wake people up. So, but open invitation to do anything on our platform, as we're now linked on Russo as well, man.
Absolutely love to. It's, I think, the reason I've done this for as long as I've done it, and, it wasn't, it became, I guess, part of my shtick, but it wasn't intended to be that. I'm a genuine passionate mark for my sport. Like I said, I grew up watching most of those guys I spoke with and getting the chance to work with quite a few of them, thank God. And I would sit in the back on a night-to-night basis, 7 nights a week, at the curtain, thinking, man, this is great. I'm getting paid, and I'm watching the greatest fucking wrestlers in the history of our business. And, to see that and to have lived it, I want our fans to understand what it is guys like you and guys like me and everybody doing these podcasts and everything else is trying to bring this other side of wrestling, this incredible sport, to the fans, and give them that peek behind the curtain, because that to me is the one thing that the fans have always wanted to know. When I was in ECW doing the franchise, character would never break character. The fans, there was always one or two that sort of got it, but most of them bought into it the way we wanted them to buy into the heat. But that has become such a lost art, and I don't agree, and I never will buy that that's passe. Well, that worked in the 60s and 70s and 80s. It won't work today. To that I say horse shit. The one thing that's missing from our business today, and if I can go on my soapbox for a second, I'm astounded when I watch the athleticism of the kids today. I mean, truly jaw-dropped. But I watch it for 3, 4, 5 minutes. If I watch it for 30, all I'm doing is watching the same thing over and over and over again. There's nothing that delineates wrestler A from wrestler B from wrestler C. And the analogy I always use is, if you would go back to, say, Bruno Sammartino's generation, the generation preceding Flair's, if you put Strongbow and Billy Graham and Luke Graham and Bruno and Dominic DeNucci and all those guys, Barry Miguel Cicluna, if you put them in head to toe, put all of us in head to toe black bodysuits, you would know in 3 seconds which one was Bruno, which one was Strongbow, which one was Billy Graham, which one was Luke Graham. You would know that about Flair's generation. You would know it about Perfect and Rude's generation. You would certainly know about my generation now. And this is not a slam or criticism for anybody who wants to troll tomorrow. Would you know today, would you know a Seth Rollins from an AJ Styles from whoever? I mean, fill in the blank. They're all doing the same moves. They do them ad nauseum over and over and over again. Nothing separates match 1 from match 2, and there's no story being told. It's athletic as hell. It's incredible, but there's nothing. It's like eating a vanilla ice cream cone over and over and over again. Or like the other analogy I use is when you sit and read a 13-chapter book. I don't know many people that read chapter 1 over and over and over again. You can't wait to get to 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. That's what's missing, and the only reason they don't know it is because we've all been put out the pasture as if we're all over the hill. We all have CTE. We can't, I don't know if you can see it. I'm trying to keep the slobber from running out of my mouth as I talk during this segment. It's incredidible because the amount of experience that we have to hand off, which is the one thing that these kids are lacking today. I mean, we can go on. We can make this a 9-hour segment because this is hitting, like I said, the nail right on the head.
Yeah, I feel lucky, man. I've been tagging with Congo Kong, and I do the Sheik gimmick. Everything I did was based off of 9/11 truth, and I never broke character until I started doing WrestleZone 2014, 15, and I would get the death threats online because it's all about respecting the bit. Now I got into this to be a creative, so when I have to start talking creative, I had to show that side of me. So I have whored out my own character enough, but when you got a guy like Rusev and we're going into Russia Gate and emails and then they're blowing their wad on Instagram by doing unboxings and showing the Americans like you're not going to
very popular. It's very popular.
You're not going to protect your gimmick, and you wonder why you're on the shelf and your career's ruined when you could have been the Ivan Drago and done it all. And if somebody said, "Well, you need 3 weeks so you can talk to Vince," you go, "Yeah, that's cute. I'm going in now." Who's going to stop you? Is Carrano going to step in front of Rusev if he wants to go talk to Vince? What's going to get him more over? So the fact that they won't even protect their own business, and with social media where, we're the most shared thing on social media. But 70% of your comments are saying, "Why am I watching this shit? It is brutal."
Amen.
So it's not all like it's positive just of what's going on there. And then you have your biggest baby faces and heels who are in a feud go to Rome and then breaking kayfabe at the Coliseum, buddy posing together. Like, so if you're not going to respect your own business, why would I respect your business? Because you're just saying, well, it's a new era. No, that's just an excuse for you not protecting the art form.
Amen. Same thing with the night before. I'll say this: everybody knows I've not been a big fan of women's wrestling, but the divas in WWE are the one thing that really does have some momentum behind it. And you watch those girls, and they're working their asses off. And Vince, I believe, did the right thing this year, putting them in the main event at WrestleMania. It was time. And then what's he do? Puts them on after a 7.5-hour bore fest. And the night before that, there's a picture of the 3 participants with their arms dressed to the hilt and having a glass of wine and incredible, like just flushed down the toilet for what? So you can show everybody, hey, we're wink, wink, we get it,
for likes on Instagram to get over more there than anything else, and to jump on the Japanese stuff. You have Nakamura and Asuka go over at Royal Rumble to be built, only to go under and be mid-carded, like. But we write this shit a year in advance, pal. Yeah, I planned on burying him last year. Like don't come with that. And then you're going to pay off Ronda. Where's Ronda, B? Like, because she comes out on social media and where they all glad handed her when she gets there. It's all red carpets and roses and $15 catering salads. But when the reality of making the house show and doing that late night stuff and then the backstabbing really starts to come out. And she's like, well, I just want to have kids anyway after they signed to a big deal. Oh, okay. Well, we'll see you in a while. We'll bring you out when we want you.
Yeah, and wasted all that time. But getting back to Rusev for a second.
Yeah, man.
Because I didn't know all that kind of stuff was going on, the 3-week wait and stuff. So who knows his character better than he knows it? I can't imagine any of those writers do.
Yeah,
if he's got something that's pressing him, some idea on, you might come in 30 seconds and say, get the hell out of here. That's idiotic. But maybe, just maybe, that kid's going to come in and have an idea that's relevant. I mean, God, the news cycle used to be 24 hours. Now it's 24 seconds. Maybe that kid has an idea, like you said, with the Russia Gate and everything else going on. Maybe, just maybe, give him some goddamn input, and maybe he'll help the product, help the writers to push in the general direction, as opposed to 3 weeks from now what you thought about. I can't tell you what I was thinking 3 weeks ago, let alone whether or not something I should bring to Vince.
This is where I think your perspective would be perfect, because you were entrusted to be the main horse that pulled the Budweiser car in ECW. To go out there and say what you had to say. I'm sure Paul gave you, here's what we need to hit. And we've seen this with Ali now, doing these very real and impassioned promos. And me as an improviser guy, this is what I wanted to bring to wrestling, where you have character monologues that have truth in comedy, that have stakes, that have real emotion to attach to. And people say, oh, it's just me turned up. Well, no, let's talk about a real truth that you have. And that's enough to drive the scene. So do you think with Paul E in place, are we going to get some of that now, where we get to hold on to a real emotion from somebody? Tell me about your experience and how that worked with you, please.
Well, it's a great question. I think that Paul's brilliance was he's an incredibly creative mind, sees things in ways that most of us don't see it. But he also never micromanaged. The best that Paul would say to me going to the ring with a 5-minute promo, he might say, hey, don't forget the Funk or Taz angle. Or don't forget, like, he'd give me like a point, maybe two, but it was never like, here's these 8 bullet points, memorize them and go out and regurgitate them.
You knew your business and where it was going ahead of time.
Sure. And what made that fun for me was it allowed me to have some steerage over where I was taking it.
Sure.
And so it's not just regurgitating what some writer wrote for me or what Paul wrote for me. I'm involved. And so if I don't like where it's going, I can steer it a little bit left, a little bit right, or way left or way right. And I don't see these kids having that possibility today. And if they're not giving input to it, if you've heard this, you can stop me. But the analogy I always use with this is the franchise character and Troy Martin are two very different people. Thank God. But because I've voiced him out for so many years, I can tell you how this guy would vote. I can tell you what kind of women he would go after. I can tell you what kind of liquor he would order at the bar. And it's different again from Troy Martin. The reason I can answer those questions is because I've voiced this character out for so long, not by a script that Paul gave me or some writer gave me. So if you would ask me any of those questions, I could answer it in a lickety-split second. If you ask a WWE kid, and this again is not a criticism, it's just stating it as I see it. If I would ask Seth Rollins how would he vote in the next election, I think his answer would be, what did the writers say? What does the script say? They don't know their character. They're regurgitating something that's been given to them. And so they don't really intrinsically know their character. And the argument I would give to that, and you're a performer, you understand this. How do you go out there and realistically portray your character if you don't even know your character? And
luckily, I was able to pull, for me, mine is so far from what I am, is like yes, hear me now, crush you infidels, I have 432 wives, I'll cut your throat. Like that character accent, being Saudi based, I knew the Saudis were behind 9/11, pulling from Bin Laden, pulling from Saddam Hussein, pulling from Hitler, pulling from Vince and Hamin, all that at the same time to whip that up in there. But if Rusev is going to be, with Aiden English and do a comedy thing, okay, we'll go all in. And it gets over, and then he's on the sidelines again because they want to get a character so close and so high stakes, and he's almost over, and then they chop him out. Did the same thing with Jinder Mahal. We're expanding to India. And then what happens? Game goes over on him in India because somebody said DX was my favorite when I was growing up, that was enough to switch the finish in India instead of making this guy the Tom Cruise of India that he should be. He should be in Bollywood movies. He should be a top sex symbol. Khali should be putting him over on those big shows. And instead, Game comes over and takes his shine. Show one, bro.
And and just flush the toilet at that point.
That's it. You got, and now you're doing Shanti. You're a guru from 1972.
Yeah, incredible.
What did you guys think of? We were talking about Paul Heyman. Obviously, Ben, you're a big ECW fan, or were a big ECW fan.
Yeah,
Shane, you're the reason why ECW was what it was, and basically the king and the almighty god of ECW. What do you think about Heyman's return this past, basically, week, whatever it was ago, with Evolve, his protege, quote unquote protege, Gabe Sapolsky, and Heyman actually returning to the arena, saying he hadn't been there in 20 years. It was really 13. But, that part aside, what did you think about Paul coming back to the place you made famous?
Well, I mean, look, it doesn't surprise me. Gabe was like Paul's gopher guy. Gabe did a lot of the stuff that nobody else saw getting done. So it doesn't surprise me that Paul would do that, return the favor. I'm sure there was a big part of it for Paul in getting to return there with a decent house and, going to soak up the adulation. But, the question I would have is why. He's a WWE talent. ECW is gone. Now he's got this new gig, right, as the head guy, booker, writer, whatever for Raw. It just seems sort of cattywampus. I'm sure there's probably some more that behind the scenes that I don't know, but the whole thing to me just seemed sort of odd and awkward as coming right off the heels of him being announced as the head of Raw. Just a little side note, and this has nothing to do with the question, but I would love to be a fly on the wall because I know Eric Bischoff pretty well, I know Paul pretty well, and I know the two of them, shall we say, don't like each other.
Yep.
I'd like to see how those two are going to interact. Look, I think if I could just for a second just go off on this, good moves in different respects. Bischoff being put in charge in SmackDown makes perfect sense to me in this sense. He's the one guy from our industry that's very seamlessly hobnobbed with CFOs and COOs and CEOs of Turner's previous incarnation down there. So he seamlessly can talk to those people and speak the language. So I'm sure the Fox people will be happy to deal with him until they find out, I don't want to put it that way. Until they find out that he's not going to be able to deliver the goods on the other side. Paul and if you could take Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff, put them in the blender and pour it out, you have an incredible person running wrestling because Bischoff's very good at the business side. I don't see the creative side that I see in Paul. So they're two sides of the same coin, and Paul, the one thing I mentioned this last week in the podcast, I think the one problem Paul's going to have, and I might be way off on this, but Paul is not a real patient person. And I can see Paul very easily losing his patience and trying to explain, for instance, he could say to me, hey, Shane, go out and give me a lot of falsies before or like when I worked with Cronus right after Perry Saturn left, make them before you take them. It's all Paul had to say to me. Will these kids understand that? And further, will somebody that's, say, on the top of the card and has been there for a while, will they say, well, I'm going to go talk to Vince and see what he thinks? And cut Paul off at the knees. So there's a lot that remains to be seen here in that whole crazy structure of all the stuff that Bennett talked about earlier, the different camps and all the different faces of all those different camps and all those competing camps trying to cut each other and stab each other in the back. It's going to be really interesting to see how that works because Paul, in my experience with Paul likes the beginning of that game. He doesn't like to play that game for very long.
That's great. That's great insight, guys. That, as history repeats itself, you're not going to see it from any closer eyes than that of franchise who, shined in every one of those situations.
Yeah, Shane, I mean, that's one way of saying you've been around the block a couple of times. You know exactly what everybody's going to kind of bring to the table here. But I think, what we were trying to throw with that Paul Heyman little nugget in there for is because, the thing with Paul returning to the ECW arena, especially when it comes to, quote, his protege and Gabe, it's funny that he was brought back in an environment where there was no threats. You know, there was nobody there that was going to say, what the hell's Paul Heyman doing here? There was nobody there that's going to get in his face that you still owe me money from 99. I think that it was like this perfect opportunity for the PR sake to throw Heyman out there and, oh, look, he's the guy running the show at Raw. You know what I'm trying to say? And of course, he's got his guy Gabe there who, let's not forget this. Gabe Sapolsky is the reason Joey Styles is no longer in the wrestling business. And I'm surprised, that Heyman's taking those glamour shots with him still when there's so many little things that really, that Heyman still has some damage, in that building.
And does he need Heyman need to be worried about look for a red dot on his jacket from all those upper deck empty seats? His Dreamer up there with a sniper rifle.
Yeah. We never talked about that on this show. Shane, that's something we were going to actually add to the sheet maybe next week. Have you heard this story about what Dreamer was saying that prior to WrestleMania 17 in Houston at the Astrodome, right after ECW closed, he was contemplating taking out Heyman at WrestleMania.
He was going to jump the barrier live on stage, murder suicide, where he would go out on top because he owed $65,000 and he'd borrowed it against his parents' stuff. I mean, the whole thing. I don't know. But he recently came out and said, dude, I was at that point. I was having murder suicide thoughts that day.
Wow.
Because they had hired everybody else, strung him along. JR gives him the call that day. We got something for you coming up here. And that's like what might have talked him back from the ledge that day.
Wow. To be honest with you, I am shocked that with as many people as he owed money to, and we're not talking 500, 1,000, a couple thousand, even $10,000. It was quite, in my case, $144,000, and about half of that was money that I had spent out of my pocket. In other words, out of my family's mouth to promote shows that I was promoting for ECW. So it doesn't surprise me that Tommy is going to do that. But what I am shocked at is that over the years that somebody hasn't along the way. Get back to Paul for a second, because it's popped into my head as you guys were talking. The other thing that I see as a real weakness in Paul, and this was something that I locked horns with him a million times in ECW. Paul loves being the boss when there's the adulation, but when there's that time, hey, JP and Chad are at each other's throat and they're not getting along and they're working a program, Paul ain't getting down in those weeds. Mm-hmm. And the example you can see in ECW, you want to go back and look at the tangible examples, was as soon as Sabu broke that first table, everybody in the dressing room went, wow, that gets a great pop. I'm going to go out and break a table. So by the time Sabu got to the ring, he'd already seen 30 tables broken.
Yep.
The same thing with the chair swings. The same thing with the F-bombs in my case. By the time I got to the ring at midnight or 12:30 or 1 a.m., you'd already heard 750 fuck bombs. So, and I went to Paul and I said, you need, like when I was a kid, I was specifically told, if you're not told to get on that microphone, do not touch that goddamn microphone. And you knew that wasn't just a suggestion, that was the order. And yet Paul would never do that, was very reluctant to do that. The only times I can remember him even wading into it is when it reached the breaking point, when guys were ready to go at each other or were at each other in the back, and if not, something bad was going to happen, and something not turn out, like somebody take a shot at somebody or something like Tommy was planning on doing. But it was rare, and even when pressed to it, Paul would say, I know, you're right, and then do nothing about it. So I just don't see how in that WWE structure that's so contingent, has always been so contingent on that larger-than-life personality of that megalomaniac personality of Vince McMahon, I don't see Paul filling that role, or others. So I think what we're seeing right now is Vince preparing to go spend a lot of time on this XFL and getting to take his sabbatical from WWE. But who fills the shoes of the guy who has been the dictator there for 35, 40 years? It's a good question. I've heard stories, and again, I'm just relaying the things that I've heard, that, Vince will walk around the office saying, they are going to kill my company. They're going to fuck my company up, talking about Shane and Stephanie and Hunter. And, now bringing in all these competing factions, Jeff Jarrett and and Johnny Ace is still lurking around there someplace.
It's so Shakespearean, man. Like,
Yeah.
and this is what Russo and Stevie and I said. Screw wrestling. This is the show.
Yeah,
The backstabbing, each one of them, each team has their own production unit. You get the reality, the behind the scenes wrestling with the shadows when the door closes where you hear the audio, the fuck this guy, mother F them. As soon as the car doors close, can you fucking believe what that like? That's the show, dude. That is the only way you will increase ratings 33% to get to the baseline that will make Fox happy, where Eric Bischoff 101, controversy creates cash. That is the only true controversy that will bring back lapsed wrestling fans to go, man, I heard something crazy is going down over there, and we gotta really see that. That's our only solution, because Vince with XFL. But first, me and Deuce, we're going down to Epstein Island on a big vacation, pal. Yeah, got the big banana hammock out. We're ready to
go. Well, let me ask a question here real quick, because I'm watching this, and you look at the numbers, and I understand all the the nuances with numbers. Television ratings across the board are down.
Yeah.
But they're not down 95, 96%. When you look at what wrestling was drawing 25, 30 years ago, and you look today, and then also when you add into that, we had gotten some inside documents from investment documents from WWE, and in every market, they classify their fans in one of three ways: current, casual, or lapsed. In every market, there's not one market where the current equals the casual or lapsed. It's exponential multiples. So I think in Japan, it's like 14-1 more fans are casual or lapsed as are still watching. And, the numbers 48 to 52 million down to, would you say 1.8, 1.7, to me, the only answer is you've already got the millennials, the ones that are going to tune in. You've already got them. Their attention spans that of a gnat. To really bring those ratings up, like you're saying, that 33%, by just pure logic, you've got to go in and start bringing people from my generation, people from your generation, those fans that were huge fans that started watching when they were 6 and watched till they were 36 before they walked away. And you're not going to bring them back with the garbage they've been given.
No. Here's what I pitch real quick. 24/7 title. The only thing that's really over in a mad world chase, they do Extreme Rules at Philly. Why would they not turn around? All right, here he comes, turns the corner. Boom, there's Stevie kick. Stevie 1, 2, 3. Stevie, yay. Boom, here comes Al Snow. Head from behind. Down he goes. Al Snow, 1, 2, 3. Hey. Turn around. Shane Douglas puts a trash can over your head, kicks you in the nuts. DDT. You're out of there, kid. 1, 2, 3. Here comes Sandman. Here comes RV. Like, why wouldn't you do that in Philly? Right. Why? Because that would get more over than anybody on your roster. When they show those throwbacks, that 25-year reunion show, people are going, holy shit, remember when wrestling used to be good?
Yeah.
You can't show that shit, because to go back and cut back to it when you've got, iconic, and like, okay, bro, all right, here's where we are. And you're telling me this is the best. This is the best right now, and you're in charge. Well, dude, if I'm in charge, we're changing the channel, unfortunately. Well, I can't, but most people are.
Yeah, no, perfectly said.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to jump in here now. We're going to cap it because we could go on all night with this. I mean, this has been an epic episode 100. You want to talk about simply the best? This might be the best episode yet, because this was very informative. Yeah, a lot of fun, very informative. And Ben, we really appreciate you coming on, doing a little bit of your bints later in the week than you normally would, and joining us here for this big episode 100. So before we get into the wrap here, obviously the people, the Russo brand, they know where to find you, but please plug up whatever you got. Tell us where we can find everything going on in the world of Ben Hamin.
Yeah, a lot, man. But before I do that real quick, it's very important to me. We've all lost a lot of friends who are dear and close to us, but my friend Hooch, who was my ECW ride or die partner, who passed very young at 35 with a family, Shane, I wanted you to know that you were his all-time favorite, and we saw everything. We went to so many live shows, and for me to get to be on here with you tonight is just a big honor, and I want to dedicate my performance tonight to him, just to be able to carry him with you and to be face-to-face with a legend like you means very much to me in my career tonight, man. So thank you.
I'm so sorry to hear for your loss, man. We get that story so often. And, I think it's a sad epitaph to our business, but it shows, just the connection you have with your friend, and we've all lost friends, but just sharing that. I appreciate you sharing that, because I've always said I understand. Most of us understand that without guys like you, the fans like Hooch, that I'm just a guy from New Brighton, Pennsylvania, with a pair of boots and tights in my bag.
Right.
So they're the ones that make it work, and I'm very sorry to hear for your loss. And
thanks, man. Just the fact that we got to be part of that time, to be in that circus of energy of ECW and the organic thing. We're just forever grateful for those moments, man. And we're making more here. Obviously at the Triple Threat Podcast. I'm happy to be on. You can get free shows 8 days a week, whether you like conspiracy, horror, comedy, Star Wars. We're covering all Locker Room Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all free content at hackerhamin.podbean.com. I'm also on Russo Brand with Stevie Richards, Vince Russo, for the Raw and SmackDown review, where we do Master Shoot Theater, where you can hear Vince get crazier and crazier every week and more out of touch, and actually sound probably more like the real Vince McMahon. ProWrestlingTees.com/Ben Hamin Infidels. Get at me on Twitter to see all the $5 face slaps at Ben_Hamin on Twitter and at Hacker Hamin on Instagram. Infidels. I'll be in St. Catharines, Ontario this Sunday, and then in August, Rome, New York on the 24th. So bring your $5, get your face slapped. YOLO.
Hey, and John, what's going on in the world of the two-man power trip this week?
Well, last week we had on WWE announcer Corey Graves, a fellow Pittsburgh guy like Shane, so that was great. And coming up this week, a legendary WCW character, Lodi, sharing a lot of great stories, including him and Lenny Lane not being a gay gimmick, but actually being brothers. So a lot of awesome stuff from Lodi. He'll be coming up next week on the two-man power trip.
You know how it is every single week, the two-man power trip. You never know who's going to be on the other end of that phone line. And finally, franchise. We know where we can get the T-shirts. It's ProWrestlingTees.com/franchise-SD. All the iconic franchise shirts. I'm sorry, I'm not wearing it this week. It was still in the wash. It wasn't ready, so I apologize. But John's sporting the yellow, so that's all good. But you can get us all on Twitter. It's at the franchise SD, at two-man power trip, at Wrestling Pal, and for this show, it's at the 3 Threat Pod. And Shane, we would like to know what you've got going on this weekend in the wonderful world of the franchise. Shane Douglas.
Well, I'm really excited this weekend. I get to go down to Houston, Texas, Bustin' for Autism. It's a yearly show they put on down there, raising money. There's a good friend of mine, a girl named Tana. She's on the autistic spectrum. I've got 2 nephews that are in the autistic spectrum, and so I'm going down to hang out with my friends down there. I'm going to have a great show. Looking forward to it. It's a once-a-year thing. So for me, any of the fans in the Houston area and the lower central Texas area, please come by. Check it out. Bustin' for Autism. Bustin' and the number 4 Autism. Check it out online and swing by to this weekend in Houston and say hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. And, this has been, I think, this may be our 5th or 6th episode we've done for the Russo brand exclusively, but 100 episodes in and no signs of slowing down. It's been an awesome 100 so far. And Ben, again, we want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been a lot of fun. And I kind of have a feeling you got an open invite to come back down the road just based off of the franchise's reaction this evening. So thank you again for joining us.
That's all. If I can pop these guys, man, that's all the pay I need out here, man. So I'm happy to come back anytime. Just reach out, man, and I'll talk to the Horseman, man, and we'll try and get something lined up and have you join us as well.
Absolutely. So, Shane, it's that time of the show. We finished 100 big episodes. We've talked about so many things over that span, but I think the best is still yet to come. So, franchise, do what you do best and take us out in only the way the franchise can.
Hey, a century full of programs, podcasts, right at the Triple Threat Podcast. We explode on the Big 100 with no less than Vince McMahon, Ben Hamin, right here, our special guest, and you're going to see me on his shows. Make sure you tune in next week, because if you don't, you'll get your ass franchised.
The preceding presentation was brought to you by the Realm Network.